comic book time scale periodization. It's time for better nomenclature. It really is for comic books. So this is from a geology textbook, a concise geologic time scale, 2016. It's 10 years old. Geologic Geologic stages are recognized not by their boundaries, but by their content. Now, I've been reading comic books for a long time. When I started reading them, they're just comic books. I didn't say gold, silver, or any age. Elsewhere, I've spoken about comics and how my mother threw away my comics, and my father forced me to sell my copy of Amazing Fantasy number 15, the first Spider-Man, for $10. Dad wouldn't listen to me. He took me in another room and yelled at me. He's offering you $10 for a dime comic, you're taking it. I never told my dad what the young man told me and showed me as he was walking out to his car. I offered $10 as a joke. I expected you to laugh. Then he showed me the $100 he had brought in cash, which he said was only a down payment, so I would hold it until he could get the rest of the money. It was already worth thousands, but neither my mom nor dad would listen to me. My dad anchored on dime comics and never changed, no matter what a new comic book cost. My brother and I talked about this over the recent holidays, 2025 at the end of the year. Brother and I are both retired. I'm living in Showalter Villa in Eston, Kansas, and he's living in another state, and our parents are long gone. When I've raised this issue in the past, I've only received criticism, mainly from comic book business folk who are happy with the way things are. The rest of them are critical or happy with the way things are. Now, I've brought this timescale periodization up in many contexts. I'm going to write a book about it, and I'm starting with comic books. So there's the book, 10 years old. Yes, a different kind of regime is in control right now. They're in the temporary majority. This kind of issue goes back and forth and has all my life and long before. Geologic stages are recognized not by their boundaries, but by their content. 3 scientists wrote this book, Og and Gradstein. They're all very well respected, and they all agreed on that sentence. All right, I studied some geology. It was a component in science classes, both in junior high, in high school, and in college. Now, I intended to take a basic geology courses. I enrolled in one, but had changed my schedule. I took a lot of science courses. My first degree, conferred by a university, was Associate of Arts in Natural Sciences and Mathematics. My wife complained that I was reading a geology textbook when I wasn't taking a geology course. But I'd become very interested in geology. I had taken chemistry, biology, and astronomy. She thought I should only study things that led to credentials. I think probably most people agreed with her, but I wanted to learn some geology. So let's see, here are the contemporary divisions of geologic time as reported succinctly on Wikipedia. An eon, an era, a period, an epoch, and an age, and then a cron. Now, an age is the smallest hierarchical unit. In geology, at this time, there are 96 formal and 5 formal ages. Now, comic books go like platinum, gold, bronze, or silver, bronze. The largest geological unit is the eon. Next is the era. There are 10 eras, 22 periods, 37 epochs, and 96 formal ages and informal crons. Geologic stages are recognized not by their boundaries but by their content. Most of the argument, both in geology and comic books, and as I was a lawyer for more than 30 years, I practiced law. I'm retired now, but that's also what you argue about in law a lot of the time, certainly in appellate cases. What it belongs on this side or that side of a line, and where the line belongs. Now, just on comic books, let's say that we can agree that Action Comics #1, June 1938, the first Superman, is in the Golden Age, and Showcase #4, October 1956, the first rebooted Flash, is in the Silver Age. Now, that does not mean all comics in June 1938 are in the Golden Age, and not every comic published in 1956 properly belongs in the Silver Age. That's a transition zone. Most comics published in June 1938 still have content that would be identified as being in the prior age. Let's eliminate gold, silver, bronze. And I will come back to this, but all right, I've not only studied a lot of science, but I worked in the field, various institutions, and I met a lot of scientific people. Now, in 2001, to celebrate the first year of the new millennium, that's why Clark and Kubrick named their entertainment 2001. If you look up on Wikipedia now, it doesn't say there's any controversy over it. First year of the new millennium was 2001. Anyway, each of the expert witnesses and the defendant, Sir Arthur Clarke, participated in my mock trial. Executive Director SETI, Chris McKay, Vince Reiner, James Gunn, science fiction grandmaster, KBI agent. This was in this was published in 2002. Page 9, the Mensa Bulletin. I was the instructor of the American Jury, Political Science 4883, the first university-taught juror preparation program. I had been former LOCSEC of Sunflower Mensa in Kansas. And, I was thinking I was not liaison at this time, but I don't remember. I know there were several offices. I served a full term, and then I served part of a term as an interim when there was an absence. So this says it was liaison in 2002, and I may have been. Anyway, we put Sir Arthur on mock trial, and I'm not going to talk about that. We'll get off the topic, but I talked with a lot of Mensa folk about this. Oh, yeah, I practiced in the United States Supreme Court, and U.S. 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, and private law hearings and tribunals and religious excommunications. I had a very full and lively legal career. I would show you more, but several boxes of my records did not make it to Showalter Villa. They were mistakenly tossed in the dumpster and are in a landfill somewhere. I think they're in Oklahoma. So, but I did one of the things I have. I wrote the lead article in, I think it was the second issue of the Newman Review, scholarly periodical. And this reports I was an attorney, holds my degrees, and I served as an adjunct professor in humanities at Newman University in 1999. Humanities. Now, unlike geology, I actually took courses in humanities. Now, here's from Wikipedia, which is very convenient. The Golden Age, according to the ancient Greeks, we're talking close to 3,000 years ago, when the Golden Age of man, peace and harmony. The Silver Age, well, they only lived for 100 years, and they were in strife. Bronze Age, men were hardened and tough and violent. Heroic Age doesn't correspond with a metal. And then the Iron Age, and we lived in the Iron Age, the Greeks, when this was written. Hesiod wrote that. Ancient Greek poet. About the same time as Homer. I just asked AI on Google, what's the ages of man? And they said the same thing. Gold, silver, bronze, heroic, and iron. They were the fall of grace to our present wickedness. So, I, as an adult, learned some science, law, and humanities. And then but I grew up in a comic book store. Now, I know some of you are going to say there's no comic book store. Well, that's my Aunt Verna. She owned several bookstores in Oklahoma City. And at the big one, where she sold used and new books and new magazines, she also sold, as far as I remember, every available comic book. DC, Marvel, Carlton, Archie, Harvey, Dell. Because kids demanded their parents take them to the comic book store, as it was called, in Oklahoma City. This is in the middle 1960s, middle to late, early 70s. She had cancer and we closed up shop. Anyway, always said I felt like the luckiest kid in the world there. I mean, I got to read all of them when they came out. That's how I ended up with some of these, though not the Spider-Man. I bought that at Flea Market in Wichita. Anyway, nobody should use that gold, silver, bronze. That's inapt if we're talking about eras. I mean, unless you want to be ridiculed, since Hesiod's talking about myth, not about reality. Now, what the geologic, at least a few years ago when I studied it again, 10 years ago, there is the age, which is defined by its content. And then the breaks, are transition zones. So that's why when I was talking earlier about action number 1 and showcase number 4, this would be the GSSP, a stationary point. Um, and so I've already written a chapter explaining this. I probably won't publish it until I finish a few more chapters. And I'll go into more detail than this, but really should be, I think this is fine. The Eon era, period, epic, age, and Cron or GSSP would be like an individual comic book marker. So action number 1 would be a marker. Showcase number 4 would be a marker.